Former President Trump is publicly calling on Vladimir Putin to release information he might have on Hunter Biden, President Biden's son. Here's Trump in an interview with Just the News yesterday.
Why did the mayor of Moscow's wife give the Bidens, both of them, $3.5 million for them? That's a lot of money. She gave him $3.5 million. So now I would think Putin would know the answer to that. I think he should release it. I think we should know that answer.
What a bunch of bullshit. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China?
He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money.
President Trump, thank you. We do need to move on.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. He doesn't respect our president. And if it is Russia, which is probably not, nobody knows who it is, but if it is Russia, it's really bad for a different reason, because it shows how little respect they have for our country when they would hack into a major party and get everything. But it would be interesting to see. I will tell you this, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press. Let's see if that happens. That'll be next. Yes, sir.
Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. Would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
So let me just say that we have two thoughts. You have groups that are wondering why the FBI never took the server. Why haven't they taken the server? Why was the FBI told to leave the office of the Democratic National Committee? I've been wondering that. I've been asking that for months and months, and I've been tweeting it out and calling it out on social media. Where is the server? I want to know, where is the server, and what is the server saying?
Oh, really?
But I don't think it can go on without finding out what happened to the server. What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentleman that worked on the DNC? Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? 33,000 emails gone. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily. I think it's a disgrace that we can't get Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer.
This shit was like international news.
On Hunter's laptop, there's emails about a 10% payment to the big guy.
For the big guy,
right?
Yeah.
So we now know, according to even the liberal press, the laptop's real, the texts are real, the emails are real. So we got to assume that the big guy is real and the 10% payment is real. Senators Grassley and Johnson were able to get the receipts from this Chinese energy company to Hunter Biden. So what's the plan to kind of expose the president's role in this?
Well, I think the other thing to point out is the eyewitness was real as well 18 months ago, right before the presidential election, when Tony Bobulinski came forward. That was real. So you had a real laptop, real eyewitness, real emails, and you had the only thing that was fake was the news, and the only thing that seems fake is the statement you just played from then candidate Joe Biden, where he said his son wasn't profiting. And as you pointed out, Sean, $4.8 million. Here's the key takeaways in my mind that we're going to look into this to answer your question. Yeah, we have to look into this because the constituents are asking us to. The American people want to know the truth, particularly when it involves the first family. They want to get the facts. But for me, the key things here is two why questions. Why did big tech collude with big media to keep this story from the American people? So we sent out 2 letters today to Twitter and to Facebook asking for documents and communications they had right before the days before the presidential election. And then maybe the bigger why question is, why is the mainstream press all of a sudden talking about it? Think about it, Sean. You know this business. Yesterday, the Washington Post does a long story at 11 a.m. and then releases another one 4 minutes later. 2 long stories, 11:04 a.m., 11 a.m. yesterday about this situation. Why suddenly are they now talking about this and confirming everything you and I and Lindsay knew and so many voters knew 18 months ago?
This shit was like international news.
Well, there's a number of key investigations we have to do. If in fact the voters put us back in charge and give us the majority, we got to look into this school board issue. We got to look into the border situation, the chaotic situation that has developed under Joe Biden. 2 million illegal immigrants coming across our border. Those are in our jurisdiction. We have to do those investigations. And then, of course, we have to look into this situation too, particularly as it impacts big tech. It's why we sent the letters we did today to Twitter and to Facebook. So all that is there. How we go about exactly who may be subpoenaed, who may not. Some people may come forward. You just don't know. But right now, this is in the Justice Department. We know from the Washington Post story that there was someone in front of the grand jury just last month on the Hunter Biden investigation. We know, as been reported, there are tax concerns that are there with all the money he was receiving from foreign interest. And of course, there's sort of that fundamental question that Sean alluded to, which is you have the email that says 10% from the big guy. The big guy, Joe Biden, we know went to Ukraine, told the Ukrainian leaders, fire this prosecutor, the same prosecutor who was beginning to look into Burisma, the company that was paying Hunter Biden thousands of dollars every single month. So, yeah, there's going to be investigations. How that progresses, we're not exactly sure yet.
All right.
Food supplies have been completely wiped out. We have a evacuation of all counties. I report complete devastation. We have a giant squall, cloud, gobbling up everything in the path. This is a total loss of life.
There are forces in this world that remind us of how fragile we are. We thought we were safe. We thought it could never happen to us. Then life, like a fog, descends upon us, blanketing our memories. Through the haze, we travel its hidden paths, lost in its secret places. And when the storm, turbulent and immovable, forces us to shelter, we remember. It calls to us, calls us back. Back to the ports and the harbors of our past. We fight the currents that pull and drag us off course, not a light or star to chart the way. And when we arrive, we don't always know it at first, the places we once loved guised by time. Then we see it, the place we've been trying to get back to. Safe at last, we've found our way home.
During the last presidential debate, then Vice President Biden was asked if there was anything inappropriate or unethical about his son's relationships, business dealings in China and or Ukraine. Does the White House stand by that comment that the then Vice President made?
We absolutely stand by the president's comment, but as you know, I don't speak for Hunter Biden, so there's not more I can say on that.
Nothing was unethical. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China.
Federal authorities are now investigating whether recently published emails that purport to detail the business dealings of Joe Biden's son are tied to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Recently published emails that purport to detail the business dealings of Joe Biden's son are actually part of an ongoing Russian disinformation campaign.
Hunter Biden, this laptop that intelligence officials have warned is likely Russian disinformation.
Hunter Biden, there's no evidence that he's done anything wrong. We all know that Hunter Hunter Biden, there's no evidence of any wrongdoing with him?
There's no evidence that Hunter Biden did anything illegal, may have been unseemly, influence peddling.
There's no evidence to support the claims about Joe Biden's son.
This shit was like international news.
You may have noticed this week that your gas prices have gone up. I want to talk to you a little bit about why. A lot of it has to do with Vladimir Putin. It's broadly known and widely known, Peter, that there was a broad range of Russian disinformation back in 2020.
Ask whether the president has made a decision on keeping the scope of Space Force.
Wow, Space Force. It's the plane of today.
Why is the administration flying thousands of migrants from the border to Florida and New York in the middle of the night?
Well, I'm not sure that it's in the middle of the night. I often note I'm going to circle back. I hate to disappoint conservative Twitter, but I am going to circle back.
Is it true that you are leaving the White House to work for MSNBC?
Well, you can't get rid of me yet, Ed. I have nothing to confirm about my length of public service or planned service or anything about consideration about next plans.
Is it ethical for you to continue conducting this job while negotiating with a media outlet?
Well, I have always gone over and above the stringent ethical and legal requirements of the Biden administration, and I take that very seriously.
Now, assuming she does depart, Biden's chief propagandist will be sorely missed here on this program for her never-ending stream of ducking and dodging and deflection and misdirection and outright lies. So we thought we would take a trip down memory lane and show some of the most notable lowlights of lying. Take a look. That could be a resume reel for MSDNC when you think about it. One of my favorites is, illegal immigrants, they don't need to get COVID tested. They're not going to be here very long. Why? Because they're getting a private jet and dropped in the middle of the night, or if it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., Jen calls it an early morning flight. Another favorite of mine. Anyway, now with Psaki reportedly joining her friends over at MSDNC. Sounds like she'll fit in perfectly. They all lie there. Will she ever admit to any of these lies, like calling the Hunter Biden laptop Russian disinformation? Because as Biden's presidency is imploding, some in the media mob are actually starting to cover the cloud of corruption surrounding zero experience Hunter and the Biden family foreign syndicate.
This shit was like international news.
And admitting that Hunter Biden's laptop was actually real, that they claimed was Russian disinformation.
My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe?
It was authentic the whole time. It was all part of a plot designed to bolster Joe Biden in what was the single biggest election cover-up, in-kind donation in modern American presidential election history.
We may not know all the details, but I tell you who does. Russian intelligence, Chinese intelligence, Iranian intelligence, North Korean intelligence. My guess there are elements within our intelligence department, our intelligence community that know as well. They're just not going to tell us. They're not going to tell the American public because there's corruption in the deep state. Chuck and I, we asked for information from Gina Haspel. She wouldn't even return our phone call to tell us why she wouldn't respond to our legitimate oversight request. So it's a very deep state. It's pervasive. It's filled with liberal leftists, and that's one of our big problems in this country today.
Well, if that's true, then that means we have, as a country, potentially a compromised president, potentially his family subject to blackmail of some kind, or they have some leverage that they hold over them.
This shit was like international news. All right.
Of course, we've known this. Those of us that had inquiring minds, we've known this for close to 2 years now. It was obvious Hunter's laptop was authentic as soon as we started seeing the information from it. But the media has been complicit. Here's a few more details. Hunter Biden knew exactly who he was dealing with. He called Patrick Ho the spy chief of China. He knew that Devon Archer was involved in eventually we proved that he was involved in a fraud against Indian tribes. He was convicted of that. Devon Archer met with Joe Biden in the White House in April 2014, right around the exact same time, within a couple of days, when Devon Archer became a board member of Burisma. A few weeks later, Hunter Biden became a board member. So this is an enormous, tangled web a vast web of financial foreign entanglements. And we've known this all along. And as Tony Bobulinski said, Joe Biden is compromised. I think it's pretty obvious he has to be. Cancels Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He cancels the China Initiative, which is the DOJ investigations into universities of Chinese stealing our intellectual property. So no, this is incredibly dirty, but the mainstream media has been complicit. They've been covering it up. And what the Washington Post learned from its Nixon coverage is when you've been caught covering things up, you do a modified, limited hangout. That's exactly what the Washington Post did. They're not revealing all the information. This is minimal information for the American public. They're just covering their you-know-whats.
Absolutely, and it's something that should be talked about, and I'm glad they're doing the probe, and I think we'll have to look into it this year, and then again when we're in the majority next year. Let's understand something. In order to understand this, we just need to talk about President Trump a tiny bit. He was accused of Russian collusion, which was absolutely untrue, and of course the media pushed it out there, and Twitter pushed it out there, and Facebook, the major stations pushed it out there other than your station. And what do we find out? Finally, we get the Durham report. Finally, we see some of the Mueller results. He didn't do anything. It was all a hoax. It was fabricated. Now, just the reverse is happening with this. They have a laptop that has critical information on it. I believe that we're going to find that this shows the entire Biden family was involved with the Chinese Communist Party and their energy producers, and actually made money for themselves, and actually hurts this country, diminished the country. And this is a real hard thing to tolerate. This is a real knife in the heart of the integrity of America. And you know what? One quick thing. Watergate was a child's game compared to what this is.
This shit was like international news.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China?
He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money.
President Trump, thank you. We do need to move on.
All right.
But that is shocking that you wouldn't, as the assistant director of cyber, know whether or not there are international business deals, kickbacks, shakedowns that are on this laptop that would make the first family suspect to some sort of compromise. Mr. Assistant Director, have you assessed whether or not the first family is compromised as a result of the Hunter Biden laptop? Well, I would think you'd know this one. I mean, I would think that if the president's son, who does international business deals, referencing the now president with the Chinese, with Ukrainians, I mean, have you assessed whether or not the Hunter Biden laptop gives Russia the ability to harm our country? So you don't have it, you don't know who has it, you don't know where it is, you're the assistant director. You know, earlier you talked about whether or not you were the Grant Hill or the Christian Laettner. It sounds like you're the Chris Webber trying to call a timeout when you don't have one. So I mean, who is it? Do you even know who has it? Do you know who we should put in that chair to ask these questions to? Well, could you find out and tell us? You're going to have to give us briefings, thanks to Mr. Lou and Mr. Massey's question about whether or not the FBI was taking a $5 million test drive on the Pegasus system that was being used to target people in politics, people in government, people in the media, people in American life. So will you commit to give us a briefing as the Assistant Director of FBI Cyber as to where the laptop is, whether or not it's a point of vulnerability, whether or not the American people should wonder whether or not the first family is compromised? How are Americans supposed to trust that you can protect us from the next colonial pipeline if it seems that you can't locate a laptop that was given to you 3 years ago from the first family, potentially creating vulnerabilities for our country?